Maglulu. Tanzanian Ports Authority Director General Plasdus Musa said that the DP World base in the United Arab Emirates will only operate four berths of the Dar es Salaam port, located in the country's financial capital, and not the entire port. Its performance will be reviewed every 5 years for a decision to have a foreign logistics company manage Tanzania's ports. The government has said the move will have been arrested so far, according to Human Rights Watch. The international rights group in August urged Tanzania to respect freedom of expression and the right to protest. Tanzania has at least 4 civilians have died in the near daily hostilities. Hezbollah has vowed to escalate if Israel begins a ground invasion of the Gaza Strip, which is likely, and Israel said it would aggressively retaliate.
A total of 4,651 people have been killed in Gaza since the conflict broke out on the 7th of October, the territory's health ministry has said. The ministry, which is controlled by Hamas, said in a statement that those killed, including 1,873 children, 1,101 women, and 1,677 men. It added that of the total death toll, 839 had been killed in southern Gaza, to where people in the north have been told to flee. The ministry also said that 14,245 people had been injured.
Israeli warplanes struck targets across Gaza overnight and into Sunday, as well as 2 airports in Syria and a mosque in the occupied West Bank allegedly used by militants, as the 2 weeks old war with Hamas threatened to spiral into a border conflict. Israel has traded fire with Lebanon's Hezbollah militant group on a near-daily basis since the war began, and tensions are soaring in the Israel-occupied West Bank, where Israeli forces have battled militants in refugee camps and carried out 2 airstrikes in recent days. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told troops in northern Israel that if Hezbollah launches a war against Israel, it will make the mistake of its life. We will cripple it with a force it cannot even imagine, and the consequences for it and the Lebanese state will be devastating. 4 days, Israel has seemed to be on the verge of launching a ground offensive in Gaza as part of its response to Hamas' deadly October 7 rampage. Tanks and tens of thousands of troops have massed at the border, and Israeli leaders have spoken of an undefined next stage in operations.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reaffirmed Canada's support for Israel to defend itself in accordance with international law and his concern over the humanitarian situation in Gaza while speaking to Israeli President Isaac Herzog. In a post on X, Trudeau said the pair spoke about hostages held by Hamas and the need for their immediate release, as well as voicing his support for the right of both Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace and security. Speaking on Thursday, Trudeau had said he was not ready to accept the U.S. finding that Palestinian militants were behind a deadly blast at the crowded Al-Ali hospital in Gaza City. But on Saturday, Canada's National Department of Defense said Israel was not behind the blast. In a statement, the Defense Department said analysis carried out by the country's intelligence command indicated a high degree of confidence that Israel didn't strike the Al-Ali hospital on 17th October. Hamas blamed Israel for the attack, while Israel blamed Hamas.
Hamas terrorists who broke into Israel were carrying instructions on how to make chemical weapons, according to Israeli President Isaac Herzog. Israeli forces claim they discovered the material on the body of a dead fighter in Kibbutz Be'eri, where an estimated 20% of the 1,100 residents were killed or kidnapped. The documents, complete with diagrams, were shown to correspondents by President Herzog in an exclusive interview on Sunday evening. It's Al-Qaeda material, official Al-Qaeda material. We are dealing with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Hamas, Mr. Herzog said. This is how shocking the situation is, where we're looking at the instructions that are given on how to operate and how to create a kind of non-professional chemical weapon with cyanide. The intelligence which has been declassified shows the ingredients needed to make a chemical bomb. Mr. Herzog was speaking in his first British broadcast interview since he became president.
Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian has warned Israel that the Middle East could spiral out of control if it does not stop strikes on Gaza. He said the U.S. was also to blame for providing military support to Israel. Hours later, Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu warned troops his people were in a battle for their lives and said the war against Hamas was do or die. Iran supports both Hamas, which attacked Israel 2 weeks ago, killing 1,400 people, and Lebanon's Hezbollah. More than 4,600 Palestinians have been killed in the last 2 weeks in Gaza, according to the Hamas-run Health Ministry, and Israel announced on Saturday that it was intensifying airstrikes. I warned the U.S. and its proxy Israel that if they do not immediately stop the crime against humanity and genocide in Gaza, anything is possible at the moment, and the region will go out of control, Mr. Amir-Abdollahian said in a news conference in Tehran. He said that the results could be severe, bitter, and have far-reaching repercussions, both regionally and for those advocating for war. The foreign minister added that U.S. military support for Israel was evidence that the ongoing conflict in Gaza was a proxy war carried out by Israel on behalf of the United States. Top U.S. officials are also warning the conflict could spread. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin warned of the prospect of significant escalations of attacks on U.S. troops or citizens.
A teenage girl allegedly attacked by Iranian authorities for not wearing a hijab is said to be brain dead. State media in the country has reported Amila Geravand, 16, suffered severe injuries at the hands of the so-called morality police at Shohada Station in Tehran at the start of October. Human rights organization Hengel said. Hengel claimed Amelia was dragged out of a train and shared an image it says shows her in a bed at Fair Hospital. The case raised concerns the teenager could suffer the same fate as Masa Amini, the 22-year-old woman whose death last year while in the custody of morality police prompted nationwide protests. In a video shared by the state's news agency IRNA, Amila's parents said their daughter had suffered a drop in blood pressure and lost her balance, hitting her head. Human rights groups have claimed her parents' statement was made under duress. They are asking for footage from inside the train to be published. But footage shared with IRNA appeared to show Amila walking towards the train with two female friends. After boarding, one of the girls dragged out by passengers.
Peshmerga forces briefly clashed Sunday in a dispute over control of a strategic military post, killing 3, Iraq's military spokesperson said. The dispute was over who controls 3 vacated posts previously in the hands of Kurdistan Workers' Party militants. It marks further tension in a fragile alliance between the Iraqi military and Kurdish Peshmerga forces of the semi-autonomous Kurdish region inside federal Iraq. Iraqi military spokesman Yahya Rasool did not specify the identities of the 3 killed, adding that 7 others in the dispute were wounded. On Thursday, the PKK announced that they were vacating the position, citing what they said was a declining threat of the extreme Islamic State group in the area. They had held the military position since 2014 during the global war of the group. Turkey often launches strikes against targets in Syria as a group that has waged an insurgency against Turkey since the 1980s. Meanwhile, security agencies in Iraq continue to crack down on Islamic State group sleeper cells. Rasool said Iraq's prime minister ordered the formation of a high-level committee to investigate the incident. You are watching the International News on Atlantic Television Network. We'll be back after this break.
Welcome back. This is the International News on Atlantic Television Network. It added.
A 5.2 magnitude earthquake and some aftershocks damaged nearly 24 houses in the hilly Dangdig district near Nepal's capital city Sunday. An official said. The shaking also caused a landslide in the region. Hamnath Parajuli, a district government administrator, said. Details were not immediately available. The area is nearly 60 kilometers west of Kathmandu, and the earthquake was felt in the Nepalese capital. Nepal's National Earthquake Monitoring and Research Center gave a preliminary magnitude of 6.1. The U.S. Geological Survey provided measurements of a 5.2 magnitude with a depth of 24 kilometers and an epicenter near Bharatpur. Three tremors of 4.3, 4.1, and 3.8 magnitude also hit the region later Sunday, according to India's Center for Seismology. Earthquakes are common in mountainous Nepal. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake in 2015 killed some 9,000 people and damaged about 1 million structures.
Dr. Mohamed Muziu, who won the Maldives presidential election last month, is wasting no time in asking India to get its troops out of the country. The president-elect, who is due to be sworn in later in November, told the press that he met the Indian ambassador a few days after his victory and told him very clearly that every single Indian military personnel here should be removed. The Maldives has long been under India's sphere of influence, and Mr. Maziu's demand is likely to trigger diplomatic tensions between Mali and Delhi. In fact, when Mr. Muziu won the Maldives presidential poll, that was seen had drawn his country closer to Delhi since taking over in 2018. The alliance backing Mr. Muziu portrayed the Mr. Muziu's alliance favors closer ties with China, which has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the Maldives in the form of loans and grants for infrastructure and development projects.
An emergency meeting with the defense secretary and other top military and security officials to discuss the latest hostilities in the disputed waters. The Philippines and other neighbors in China have resisted Beijing's sweeping territorial claims over virtually the entire South China Sea. And some, like Manila, have sought U.S. military support and incidents multiply. After the meeting, Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro blasted China in a news conference for resorting to brute force that he said endangered Filipino crew members and for twisting the facts to conceal its aggression. The U.S. and other allies expressed alarm over the Chinese action. Washington renewed a warning that it's obligated to defend the Philippines under a 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty if Filipino forces, ships, and aircraft come under an armed attack, including those of its Coast Guard anywhere in the South China Sea. The United States stands with our Philippine allies in the in the face of the People's Republic of China's Coast Guard and maritime militia's dangerous and unlawful actions obstructing an October 22 Philippine resupply mission to Second Thomas Shoal, the U.S. State Department said in its statement issued by its embassy in Manila. It blamed the dangerous maneuvers by China's ships for the coalitions and added that they violate intentionally interfering with the Philippine vessels' exercise of high sea freedom of navigation.
An American basketball player at a professional Polish women's club was beaten and fell with a head injury midweek, with the attacker later detained, according to officials and reports in Polish media on Sunday. Michaela Kolin, who plays for VBW Grodnia, was attacked late Wednesday in a music club in Gdańsk, a city in North Poland, according to the RMF-FM broadcaster, which also quoted to club saying the brutal beating left her with a fractured eye socket, among other injuries. Gdansk is a neighboring city to Gdynia on the Baltic coast. I am outraged that such a shameful situation has occurred. Violence and aggression are unacceptable and must be opposed. Gdynia Mayor Wojciech Zeruk said Sunday on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Fortunately, the police quickly caught the attacker. We wish the player good health. The attack happened after a Euro Cup women's match where the Gdynia team defeated rivals from Switzerland, BCF Freiburg, 77 to 47. The president of the Gdynia club, Boxlo Wikswoki, said that the player was attacked near the women's restroom by a security guard. Colin was hit several times on the head, and when she fell, she was also kicked. The most serious injury was to her.
The throne following the death of his father, King Olive, in 1991.
Belgium's justice minister resigned on Friday over what he described as a monumental error after it was discovered that Tunisia was seeking the extradition. Routinely complained of staffing shortages and heavy caseloads. Al-Assad had applied for asylum in Belgium in November 2019. He was known to police and had been suspected of involvement of human trafficking, living illegally in Belgium, and of being a risk to state security.
Secretary of State Anthony Austin said Sunday that the United States expects Israel-Hamas war to escalate through involvement by proxies of Iran, and they asserted that the Biden administration is prepared to respond if American personnel or armed forces become the target of any such hostilities. This is not what we want, not what we are looking for. We do not want escalation, Blinken said. We don't want to see our forces or our personnel come under fire, but if that happens, we are ready for it. Austin, echoing Blinken, said, what we are seeing is a prospect of a significant escalation of attacks on our troops and our people throughout the region. He said the United States has the right to self-defense and we won't hesitate to take the appropriate action. The U.S. announced Sunday that non-essential staff at its embassy in Iraq should leave the country. Blinken, who recently spent several days in the region, spoke of the likelihood of escalation and Hamas, which rules Gaza.
And lower woman who falsely claimed to have cancer and documented her battle on social media will stay out of prison after a judge gave her probation and a suspended sentence. Madison Russo, 20, never had pancreatic cancer.
Michigan State showed Adolf Hitler's image as a part of a pre-game quiz on video board before playing on Saturday night and later apologized for the inappropriate content provided by an outside source. Hitler and Austria, his birthplace, flashed on the video boards long enough for some on social media to share what was seen by some fans for more than an hour before kickoff. MSU is aware that inappropriate content by a third-party source was displayed on the video board prior to the start of tonight's football game, Michigan State spokesman Matt Larson said. We are deeply sorry for the content that was displayed, as this is not representative of our institutional values. MSU will not be using the third-party source going forward and will implement stronger screening and approval procedures for all video board content in future. The pregame quiz provides content well before games on video boards.
Funeral service were set Sunday for Detroit synagogue president found fatally stabbed at a home as authorities investigated a motive and asked the public not to draw quick conclusions. Samantha Wall, who led the Isaac Agreed downtown synagogue and was a former aide to Democratic Rep. Elisa Slokin and campaign staffer for Attorney General Diane Nessel, was remembered as a community leader who worked to build bridges. Sam was
in Nashville. One of the officers was released from the hospital Saturday night. The other officer was kept overnight for observation and was in a stable condition, said Ann Smith, a spokesperson for the city of La Vergne. Their identities have not been released. The police chief issued a statement Saturday confirming his son was a suspect in the shooting. Drake said they were estranged and over many years he has had who resorted to years of criminal activity. He said he now needs to be found and held accountable for his actions today. I hope that anyone who sees him or has information about him will contact law enforcement immediately, Drake said in a statement. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said in a social media post that a statewide alert had been issued for Drake, who was wanted on 2 accounts of attempted first-degree murder. After dozen law enforcement agencies are involved in the search.
StarTimes will have to choose between left-wing candidate Sergio Massa and the far-right Javier Milei in a runoff vote next month. Partial results from Sunday's presidential election suggest, with most ballots now counted, no candidate has received more than 45% of votes, the threshold to be elected. The outcome has surprised most pollsters who thought voters would punish Mr. Massa for presiding over a major crisis as economy minister. Inflation in Argentina is nearing 140%. Front-runner Mr. Milei was leading in the polls prior to the vote, but Mr. Massa has received 36.2% of ballots so far. Mr. Milei has received 30.2% of their votes according to partial results. Sunday's election saw a voter turnout of 74% according to local media. Argentina's pre-election polls are notoriously inaccurate and failed to predict Mr. Milei's rise in August primaries.
An Australian former fighter pilot accused of breaking an arms embargo by training Chinese military pilots wants access to classified government documents to demonstrate that a U.S. request to extradite him is politically motivated. His lawyer has said Daniel Duggan, who became an Australian citizen in 2012, accused of breaching U.S. Army trafficking laws by training Chinese pilots while working at South African flight school. In the early 2010s, Duggan faces up to 60 years in prison if he is convicted. A November court date had been set to consider a U.S. request to extradite Duggan from Lithgow prison. It will now instead seek material from government agencies in defense and intelligence, pushing Duggan's extradition hearing back 6 months to May 2024. The stakes are critical, his lawyer Dennis Morales said outside Sydney's Downing Central Local Court on Monday. Duggan, who has no criminal history, has spent extended period in isolation in maximum security prison after being classified as a high-risk prisoner. He denies the charges and is fighting his extradition from prison. His legal team has maintained the U.S. extradition request is politically motivated, catalyzed by the U.S. deepening
that he avoids jail, but gets so close to it that it looks like to everyone that he is breaking the law. Pratt boasted of paying about $1 million to Rudy Giuliani, Trump's lawyer, to attend his birthday party. Giuliani didn't attend, but the pair spoke regularly on the phone. The recording suggests Pratt said, Pratt said, Rudy is someone I hope will be useful one day. Pratt had made a payment to then Prince Charles of Pratt had made a payment to then Prince Charles of $182,000 in 2021, according to documents cited by the 9 papers, and said, my superpower is that I am rich, so I am useful to him, Prince Charles, right? He also said of Charles, what I'm trying to do is network with people who can be useful. Prince Charles said when he introduced me to Camilla, he is Pratt being very, very useful. And I thought that's an insult, and then I thought it is better than being irrelevant. And I see him as an undervalued political stock. It is just that he is a laughing stock now, but when he is king, they won't be laughing. There is no suggestion that Pratt has engaged in any wrongdoing or that he is under investigation as part of the probe by special prosecutors in the U.S. of Trump's handling of confidential information. And that's the international news for today. Before we go, another look at the major stories. UN pulls out peacekeepers from Mali's northern region.
Israel strikes targets in Gaza, including West Bank.
US stands by Manila as Chinese naval debacle heightens.
King Harold tests positive for